I mean, there are several ways to approach the process when you're deciding what game to make. I mean, some developers may rely on marketing and focus testing and saying, well, right now, let's say the FPS genre is really popular, so let's make one of those. And, developer X is including this feature, so let's include a slightly better version of that feature, and we'll include it as a bullet point in our advertising. That's how we'll sell the game, right? That's one approach. But for me, it's certainly something different. I mean, I take my inspiration from a more internal place when choosing what games to make. So when I started making the DOA series, when I started making the Ninja Gaiden series, when I started making the DOA X series, every time there was a different motivation for me to begin those projects. When making a video game, the person who originally came up with the concept, the core concept of the game, has to at least see it through to having that core concept come to fruition. If you don't do that, then the whole thing will fall apart. I really think the approach for me is when you look at a game design, the most important parts of that would be, say, maybe 10 out of 100. And I just absolutely am unwilling to compromise on those 10 aspects that make the game really what it is. But then the other 90 that helps to flesh out the game, I don't necessarily have to be directly involved with all of those. As you know, I'm directly involved with the development of both Ninja Gaiden Dragon Sword and Ninja Gaiden 2 right now. So if there is something in there that I feel doesn't belong, of course I'm going to cut it out, and no one's going to be able to convince me otherwise. But if a staff member comes up with a good idea, I'm going to praise him and say, great, let's use that.
Is this sort of a turning point for you? Are you really starting to listen to other people's opinions and letting that sort of creep into how you design your games? I'm talking about I guess for lack of a better phrase, the weak gamers out there who aren't good enough to play your games.
Yeah, I think that's basically right. I wouldn't call them necessarily weak gamers. I just think that as generations change and as thoughts on what games should be and what gameplay should be change, it's important that we are able to be flexible enough to adapt to that. If not, we're going to be dinosaurs within a few generations.
What do you think of the competition for Ninja Gaiden? There's games. Have you played God of War? Has he played God of War, do you know?
Yeah.
I think God of War is an amazing game. My philosophy for games is that you kind of have to keep the same control configuration throughout the game, right? That, this button always does this function. And by teaching the player how to use all these functions and get better at the game, that's how you, really kind of develop that game's fun factor. Which is why I'm kind of regret what we did in DOA 3, because the last boss was like a totally different style of play. So you spent all your time getting good at the fighting game aspects of the game. You got to the last boss, and all of a sudden it was this weird camera angle, and it was totally different. And I regret what we did there. So I recognize the importance of keeping the same control scheme throughout the entire game. Now that's my philosophy, but I think that what God of War does is great also, because they have the core gameplay, right, that uses the keys and the buttons in the way that it's set out from the start. But then in some instances, like during boss encounters and things, they introduce a new game control paradigm that allows you to do these kind of cinematic battles that wouldn't be possible with the standard controls. And I think it's because they're using that separate control scheme to do these events that just are totally over the top. That's one of the reasons why their game is so successful. It's so hard when you're trying to keep the control scheme the same throughout the whole game, but you want to give different experiences, right? So in the previous game, when we tried to do like big bosses, like the Fire Dragon or Alma in her awakened form, I don't think those battles were necessarily all that great. It's just because we remained in the confines of the control scheme, but we were trying to do these really epic battles.
When was the last time that you played a game that you were like, damn, I wish I thought of that?
There's plenty of instances like that, and not even just in action games either.
So what do you think of Devil May Cry?
DMC? DMC 4?
Yeah.
I haven't paid much attention to it, to be honest.
DMC 4 にこだわるね。
I think the biggest problem with DMC4 is that the enemies really don't do anything, right? I wouldn't call them enemies, I'd call them targets.